tell you a story. I was teaching a teaching class. It was a 3-day class, course room class, and we'd come to the end of this 3-day tuition, and a student came up to me right at the end. He said, it was a great class, really enjoyed the class, but I've got a problem because I've taken this exam 4 times. Oh, I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be difficult. I've taken this exam 4 times and my marks are getting worse. First time I got 45%. Second time I got 41%. The third time I got 35%. And last time I got just 29%. I'm getting worse sitting after sitting, and I've got no idea where I'm going wrong. And, you know, the course has been useful, but I just fear that I'm going to just go in and be in the same situation again. Now, at that point, I'd been teaching for quite a few years, but never had anyone approach me in that sort of situation. So I turned to him and I said, well, I'll tell you what, why don't you send me a script of yours? We'll take a look through, we'll see what the problems are, and you can work with me one-to-one, and we'll do some one-to-one tuition, and I'll guide you and focus you, and we'll work that way, which is exactly what we did. So my one poor student then, there he is, weighed down by his books. What was interesting about him, actually, seeing someone there with a book. That isn't him, by the way. That's just a model. But he really did know the theory well. One thing I found, and I started looking at his scripts, was theory brilliant. He knew all the theory off by heart. Really, really excellent. The problem he had was that this was a fully written script. It wasn't a case study, but it was a very similar type of exam with 100% writing, no numbers, much like the strategic case study is today. And his theory knowledge was excellent. He could write the theory out, but still, despite knowing all the theory, he just got 29% last time he took that paper. So where was he going wrong? He was waffling. He was such a waffler. One thing that was interesting as we talked on the phone, it was kind of phone type coaching that I was doing with him. One thing that was interesting was that he was panicking so much. It's one of the reasons his marks had gone down. His idea was, let me just get down everything I know. Because if I just write everything I know, surely I'll get enough marks somewhere. And so he waffled and waffled and waffled, and he was talking about a whole load of things that weren't actually the requirement. That meant that, you know, the requirement was over there when his script was just here, and they weren't matching. And therefore he was just getting so few marks because you just couldn't give the marks because it was answering a different question. So he'd waffle and waffle, and even as he started to focus to answer the requirement, even then he would still be off track. And what would be interesting was that we'd be talking on the phone and I'd say, look, I don't really understand what you're saying there. Tell me, well, what is it? The point you were trying to make. He would verbally tell me perfectly the point he was trying to make, but it was not what appeared on paper. So basically we went through this whole approach, changing his whole writing style and approach. No technical theory in this. There was some planning work as well. His planning was very poor, so we go back to the planning there. But you know, planning wasn't his primary problem. His primary problem was he just really did not write well. He would write very, very poorly, just completely unfocused, unstructured, and it just went nowhere. So we worked on it, and we worked on it script by script, script by script. He sent them in to me, and he was getting a bit better, and a bit better, and a bit better. And actually, by the day of the exam, he was writing a good quality script. But fingers crossed for him. He went into that exam, and he got 69%. The pass mark was 50% back then. Okay, he was well above the pass mark, but not only that, he was a full 40% higher on his mark because of one thing, and that one thing was writing style. It was the way he approached the script, the way he wrote it out, the points that he made. It made a huge difference to him. Now, some of you won't have a writing style problem, but it's worth you checking out my writing style rules to check that you are on track. Because if you're not, then there's some really, really important lessons here. So let's start to work through those then. What does it take then to write a high quality report in written exams? And in the strategic case study, you might be writing an email, you might be writing a report, a memo. They have to be really well communicated. It's part of the people criteria. And so if you don't do that, it's not going to come across very well. And so it's actually even more important in this exam than it was back in that poor student's case. Okay. So typical mistakes that people make then are as follows. Okay. Let's take a look at an example in order to kind of bring this to life. A nice simple one. Explain the benefits of appraisal at work, kind of HR-y type example. Imagine that was 10 marks. Okay. So here is a paragraph. So, in a work-based, this is someone's answer. This is a poor answer, by the way, just in case you were wondering. So, in a work-based scenario, appraisals are an important part of the HR professional's armoury. HR professionals must work under the guise of an HR plan or strategy which guides the direction of the work they do, from which an appraisal system will often be derived. All fine and correct. But where does that tell me about the benefits of appraisals? It skirts around it. It doesn't focus on appraisals. It's not even defining clearly what an appraisal is, which I would be happy with. It's just waffle. It's someone trying to do an introduction, but an introduction that just doesn't score marks. You do need to do introductions at the strategic case study. Okay, but they need to be, just in answer to your question about this, I'm just going through this and perhaps defining a theory you're going to use or something along those lines. Here's another paragraph. Okay, no marks so far, by the way. Appraisals are usually undertaken on an annual basis by the manager in charge of the staff member. They are often measured against objectives set at the start of the year or measured against set criteria for that grade of staff. This was the kind of thing that my student was doing. He would do the give me everything I knew about appraisals. These two paragraphs were common ground in his answers. But I can't give that any marks because the question's, it's the benefit of appraisals. See? So you've got to keep focused. Okay, what's next? Appraisals can motivate staff. Oh, that's a benefit. Okay, yes, we're answering the question. Okay, staff will be happier after having an appraisal. Okay, not very well written. Okay, yeah, that's not very professional language, is it? You must write with professional language when you write. Talking things through makes people feel better. Oh, okay. More of this poor professional language. They will know they are in a warm environment and feel cared for. Okay. I might give that a half mark. Kind of. It's just a bit wishy-washy, a bit general. We need to get to specifics of, really what's the benefit of motivated staff? How is it that appraisals actually do motivated staff? So we can say that through discussing personal issues, through discussing their targets, staff will feel more motivated after leaving. And then what's the benefit of that? This is the key. What's the real benefit of motivated staff? Well, they'll be more productive. They may stay in the organisation for longer and be a more valued employee. Okay, so these are real benefits. We're following our answers through to get to the heart of a benefit. Okay, appraisals can also be used to facilitate HR planning, identify weaknesses, enable top-down communication of plans and objectives. Yes, they can. All good points, but I'd probably give that a mark for 3 good points, but made almost as bullet points. It's very hard to give that more marks because there's no depth. Now, at the strategic case study level, you're expected to apply to a scenario. So it wouldn't be the appraiser's benefit at work. It would be in this scenario. And bullet points like that are never going to be applied. They're never going to have the depth that's needed. You've really got to make nice, detailed points every time you're making a point. Appraisals help with upward communication from staff to manager, so they can air their views and clear the air between them. Okay. It's a bit short, that point. I'd just like a little bit more. What's the benefit of clearing the air between them? Did we need to clear the air? In fact, is clearing the air the right term? I'd prefer that it would be so they can air their views, and those views can be discussed and resolution found to any problems or issues for that individual. Therefore, they will be happier and potentially more productive in the future. Something like that. Something to really get to the benefit in more detail. Appraisals ensure staff are not lost in the dark. Appraisals are like providing the track to the train or giving the bird its wings, free to fly through the hills and enjoy its life fully and completely. You wouldn't believe it, would you? But I have seen phrases, not quite as wishy-washy as that one, to be fair. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite as bad as that. When I wrote that one, I was trying to exaggerate, as you can tell. Okay. But I have seen people use metaphors. It's almost like they're writing an English essay. No, professional, as if you were at work. Okay. Appraisals, I suppose, can be used to identify development needs of staff. Okay, good. By agreeing areas where they need to improve current work or develop for future roles or promotion. That's a nice start. Okay, but it's not stopping there. It's going to give me a bit more. I like this. Training or development programs can then be agreed that are specific to these needs and support both the individual, motivating them and improve their work performance. Perfect paragraph. Phew, we end on a high note. Okay, that's the kind of paragraph that every one of your paragraphs needs to be. You make a point, you explain that point, you expand on it, you relate it to the scenario, you bring it out and really add value to your reader so they fully understand what it is you're trying to get across. So, I mean, for 10 marks, that would have ended up scoring, well, 1 mark for the last one, potentially 1.5. No, not 1.5, just 1 mark for the last one, and probably 2.5 out of 5 in total, I think, is what that would have gone. So lots of words, not many marks. And you've got to get 60%, remember. So, you've got a higher target than my poor student. There he is, over on the left-hand side. You've got a higher target than that either. So here are the 9 writing style rules. These rules are your guide to what you must do when writing out your answers if you're going to score good marks in this exam.